So like, hello. I'm going to take my jacket off. If anybody wants to do that, go ahead and do it. It's hot. All right, I'm Stu Still. And good afternoon again. Thank you for being here. Working with you, nonprofit and community leaders, donors, partners, government officials, friends, philanthropists, all, it is a privilege. We learn from you every day. We are honored to work with you. Vermont is a special place, and it's because of you and because of the traditions of working together. All of us are indeed better together. It's also a privilege each year to have this opportunity to share some thoughts with you about philanthropic issues of the day. As I travel around the state, I find myself talking about community and connectedness. That makes sense, as our work at the Community Foundation is fundamentally about that, about social capital, about our commitment to each other, about trust, about reciprocity toward one another. That is social capital. I'll talk about that today. I'll talk about how we're better together. Beyond the natural beauty of this place and of the mountains and of the valleys and of the waters, it is this social capital that makes Vermont such a special place. But I want to approach it a little bit differently this year. Ice buckets and David Letterman. So people ask me about the Ice Bucket Challenge. For those of you who don't spend much time on the internet, or watching television, or talking to people, the Ice Bucket Challenge is something that burst on the scene this summer. The idea is that people are challenged by friends, family members, colleagues to make donations for Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS. They're asked to either give $100 for ALS research or dump a bucket of ice on their head and give $10. It's kind of clever. And since it started, the campaign has involved everybody from our governor to Britney Spears and David Beckham and your children and grandchildren and nieces and nephews and probably some of you in the room. It's been a stunning success and has brought over $100 million to the ALS Association, somewhat more than the $2.8 million they raised last year. Seems like a good idea. But if you read the philanthropy blogs and some newspapers and reputable online journals, there is little love for the Ice Bucket Challenge. Among the questions, is the Ice Bucket Challenge dumbing down philanthropy? Is it distracting people from what's really important? Is it going to mean that every nonprofit has to come up with their own clever gimmick and get people to give even if people don't know who they are? Is it merely a chance to bring attention to ourselves? My golly, is it a sign of the apocalypse? Here's one of my favorite articles from the Canadian News Weekly Maclean's. The marketing gimmick is very clever. It's short, immediately understandable, and like the most popular forms of slacktivism, it is easy to do, entertaining to watch, and narcissistically self-promoting. It's a great way to raise money, but a horrible reason to donate. They go on. When we decide where to spend our charitable dollars, we need to consider three factors. Where is the greatest need? Where will my dollars have the greatest impact? And what is the most urgent problem? The ALS Challenge fails all three. So my 11-year-old niece pours freezing water on her head, squeals, posts a video on Instagram that's seen by maybe 40 friends and family members, and she gives some of her allowance to ALS research. What may well have been her first ever gift, and she now knows something about ALS and is aware of something else that's important in the world. She gave. Is that so bad? And might it not inspire her and others to think about other things she should support? $100 million for ALS research. How is that bad? According to some critics, if it's not strategic, it's never good. So here's my view. My view is this. I believe that philanthropy is a good thing. My friend, and many of your friend Liz Bankowski, she says it even more directly. There is no such thing, says Liz, as bad philanthropy. And I tend to agree. It's hard to go wrong when you're acting out of a place of generosity. Her point, as I heard it, is that we shouldn't fret so much about generosity. We shouldn't let the joy of giving be muddied by the intellectual pursuit of the best, the most effective, and perfect giving. And I'm with her. Now, to be clear, the pressure on the ALS Association in the next year is going to be enormous. Millions of people know about them and have donated. They have to be smart and strategic and effective as they look at new ways of supporting ALS research. And sure, we also expect larger philanthropies, strategic philanthropists and foundations to be, well, strategic and thoughtful. I don't disagree with the Maclean's writer who says we should be strategic and try to focus on critical issues. You rightly expect us at the Community Foundation to analyze strengths and weaknesses, to make wise grant choices and recommendations. And if the Ford Foundation said we're going to give all of our millions of dollars every year to ALS research, we have a right to be skeptical and maybe even critical. But that's not what I'm talking about. This campaign, launched by individuals who wanted to bring attention to the disease, ended up not only bringing awareness to ALS, but awareness to other giving issues and money to the organizations as well. And that's a good thing. In the rush to criticize, I want to say to you that giving, quite simply, is good. I'm not going to recount again the data about proving that people's lives are better when they give. The data is out there, and it's true. You'll even live longer when you give. Really. The questions about the Ice Bucket Challenge may be interesting, but I'm far more interested in the reaction to it. I want to talk about the kind of closed-mindedness and cynicism that I see permeating too much of our culture. I want to talk about the danger of criticism becoming an end in and of itself. I want to talk about David Letterman. So like many of you, particularly those who were born before 1970, I loved David Letterman when he started, particularly when he started. He was fresh and cutting and funny. Nothing was safe. I loved it, and he changed television. We got to see inside the television show, behind the scenes, to feel smart and clever, and he made fun of everything and everybody. He's become far more gentle in recent years, but from Letterman and his progeny, we came to learn that criticism of anything and everything is smart. I wonder, though, if that kind of smart criticism may have left too many of us without any real sense of what we do believe and of what does matter. The president of Wesleyan University, Michael Roth, in a New York Times op-ed piece this summer, said something very similar. Critical reflection is fundamental to teaching and scholarship, but fetishizing disbelief as a sign of intelligence has contributed to depleting our cultural resources. Fetishizing disbelief as a sign of intelligence. That's my worry. My worry is that our David Letterman-ness is getting in the way of our Ice Bucket Challenge-ness. Think about the Maclean's piece I mentioned. Not only did they criticize the campaign, but they were clever and biting, and you all laughed, and I laughed when I read it. They even called us slacktivists. It's almost as if we're saying, if you're intelligent, then you must poke a hole in the ice bucket. So most of you know I'm originally from the Midwest, born in Nebraska, raised in Cleveland. When we moved to Cleveland, we were by hundreds of miles living further east than anybody in our family had for at least 100 years. I bring this up here because there's a particular kind of Midwest that I grew up in with a particular stereotypical set of beliefs about ourselves. That we're earnest, that we're hardworking, that we're honest. Now that, of course, can be overdone, and there are other earnest, hardworking, and honest people. And there must have been lazy and dishonest people where I grew up. But importantly, those stereotypical Midwestern values also carry with them a belief in things. A belief that people are mostly trying to do good and are mostly telling the truth. A belief in people who try to make things better. A belief that by working together and helping each other, things will be better, and a value that you don't criticize people too much when they're doing their best. I want to relate this to philanthropy. When I first started in the world of philanthropy, I was most involved in grant reviews. I ran the grants program at our fellow community foundation in New Hampshire. Like Jen and Christopher and Janet do now, I read hundreds of applications every year. And there's a truism that became clear to me very early. It's this. The moment you become cynical about the proposals is the moment you're simply done as a grant maker. And I saw it happen. For grant makers, we cannot make it our goal to find the problems with proposals. That kind of constant skepticism only disconnects us from our communities. Our goal has to be to find the genius in each and every proposal, to find the spark, the passion, and the humanity. Of course, we can't fund everything. Of course, grant makers do need to maintain a skeptical eye, but all of us can and must retain the capacity to believe. We must all have a sense of wonderment and awe at what comes before us. We all need to be willing to be swayed, to be open to new ideas. Who would have thought in 1980 that Shelburne Farms would one day become a national leader in sustainable agriculture and education? But people believed. Who would have thought in the 1990s, late 1990s, that the Paramount Theater in Rutland would be revived and we'd become a cultural center for that city? But some people believed. Maybe the same kind of people who believe that the Moran plant in downtown Burlington can become a maker space, a meeting space, an event space, an art gallery, and offices. My plea to you is this. Believe. Believe in people and ideas in Vermont. Believe in yourselves, believe in each other. Allow a little wonderment to creep into your lives. Don't be so quick to shoot down someone else's idea. Snarkiness is not something to be proud of. While it's certainly okay to have questions, but don't let that get in the way of other people's enthusiasm. Now, that doesn't mean you have to believe everything, but it does mean you cannot disbelieve everything. I'm fine if you don't want to participate in the Ice Bucket Challenge, but don't rain on the belief parade of others. Sure, you say that's nice, but sometimes the issues are just far more complicated than that. Sometimes they're messy, complex, and sometimes people fundamentally disagree about solutions. Well, that's fair enough. But I choose to believe that even there we can find the genius, the brilliance, the solution inside the mess. In my job, I'm fortunate enough to see that enthusiasm in people who do believe. And I've seen it lead to wonderful things. I see collaboration and passion and creative problem solving by many philanthropists, including some who work with us at the Community Foundation, like the McClure Foundation, the Permanent Fund, the High Meadows Fund, the Women's Fund, the Samara Fund, all of them working on complicated issues, all of them listening for new ideas and visions, all of them with belief. It's hard, and sometimes the issues are so complex you could cry. What do you do with Ferguson, Missouri? What can philanthropy do there? How can we help there? Well, that's where philanthropy, like everyone else, has to be at its most humble and creative, and with eyes wide open. I fully hope and expect that smart philanthropists are sitting down already with citizens and activists and town leaders to talk about solutions in that place where so much disenfranchisement and discouragement. What we know is that philanthropy, community work, civic engagement, it takes many forms. Sometimes the forms are deeply strategic, complex, and long-term, and sometimes it's an ice bucket over the head and a video and a laugh. I haven't done the Ice Bucket Challenge, but I won't criticize anybody who does. And I don't view the $100 million raised as a bad thing. because I believe and know that philanthropy is a good thing. And what I ask you today is this. When somebody has an idea, even if at first it sounds a little wacky, don't start with why it won't work. Start by finding the beauty in the idea. That's how we build community. And that's how we learn that we are indeed better together. Thank you.